right, oh my God, here we are again. Hello, it's Naomi Wolf with Outspoken and Daily Clout, and I am so honored to be joined by Athena Clarke. Welcome, Ms. Clarke.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so exciting for me to have you for so many reasons, and I've been posting about you on my, pardon me for my sniffles, on my social media. I'm just going to read a little bit about you in case people are not yet familiar with you. Athena Clarke is the Republican candidate for Brooklyn's 46th District City Council, running on a platform to reinstate and compensate New York City workers harmed by government overreach. A lifelong Brooklyn resident, proud mother, and former New York City school teacher. And she's appearing on the ballot this November, running on a bold platform of justice, accountability, and transparency. Born to Jamaican immigrants and raised in the heart of the 46th District, Clarke's journey from local schools to the classroom reflects her deep roots in the community. She attended PS 203, Roy Mann Middle School, and Sheepshead Bay High School. Then she earned a bachelor's degree from Brooklyn College and a master's in school building and district leadership. Wow, from Touro College. She taught for 7 years as a tenured educator in the New York City Department of Education, authored a children's book to inspire young learners. I didn't even know that. But in 2021, her life took a sharp turn when she was terminated without due process after declining the COVID-19 vaccine. And we'll get into her platform and what happened to her after that. But I just wanted to give that background. So thank you for being a teacher in the New York City public school system. I understand that is not a walk in the park necessarily.
It is not.
And thank you for standing up for, freedom. So why don't we jump right in and pick up the story? What happened to you when, COVID rolled out and the mandates hit New York City public school teachers?
So I was, teaching as regular, and then the mandates came out in March of, the lockdown happened in March of 2020. And I remember sitting down with my cousin, my sister, both my cousins, because they're brother and sister. And then my sister, we were just discussing if we thought the lockdown was going to happen. And no one was really sure what was going to happen. And then literally as I'm sitting at the table with my cousins, I get the email saying that they're going to, shut the city down for 2 weeks. And then I was like, oh, well, I guess, we're going to get locked down. So the students weren't coming in, but the teachers had to come in to prepare to go virtual pretty much. So we had to come in. Yeah. Right. And prepare lesson plans, wear masks and everything like that, which is, thinking back on it, is so crazy because we were just there Friday and everything was normal. There were no masks. There wasn't this hysteria. And then it changed so quickly just over the course of a weekend. I'm walking into the building and everyone is wearing a mask. No one can sit next to each other. Everyone's scared. And we had to do lesson planning and, we never went remote before. So we didn't know what that entailed, how that will look, how it will translate to the kids. And I'm an elementary school teacher. So I teach little ones. I taught first graders. So they were only 6 and 7 years old and also special needs, so it was very difficult. And so, keep in mind while we're preparing to go virtual, the kids are just out of school. So there was a whole week of no learning happening at that point in time.
No learning at all?
At all. Yeah, no, we weren't. Not that I can remember. I could be wrong because honestly, after COVID, everything kind of was just a blur. I kind of went into a space where I couldn't even differentiate things, but I could be wrong. So if there wasn't any learning at all, no, there wasn't. There couldn't have been.
I believe you. I mean, I've heard that from other teachers.
There couldn't have been because there was nothing prepared. We had nothing to prepare for it. The kids didn't have email addresses yet. They didn't have a Google Classroom yet. We did all of that when we came back to work on the Monday. So yeah, that week there was no learning. The kids were just home waiting in limbo.
Oh my God, how awful. And can I just jump in if I may, Ms. Clarke, when you're talking, a couple of things hit me. One of them is, and I thought this at the time in New York, they said 2 weeks we're going to shut down. but they were preparing you for remote learning, as if they knew already that you weren't coming back in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And we were discussing it as, teachers, like, do you think we're coming back? Yes, no, maybe so. And I remember telling my my AP, I was like, no, we're gonna come back. I'm like, we'll be back. I'm like, even if it's not 2 weeks, we'll be back, to say bye in June. And I was definitely wrong. But I wanted to come back. I didn't want to be locked down, So when we left, we took everything. So like we prepared for 2 weeks like online, but then it was like, you know what, just take your teaching guides, like take everything just in case. And so everybody just ran back and like, because we did have access to some of the stuff online,
Right.
but
So they knew. They knew
yeah,
what was ahead.
like looking back on it, like I never even really thought about it until this conversation right now. And I've told this story several times already on this campaign journey, but looking back on it, yeah, they must have known something, because why would you say to take your teacher's guide if we're coming back?
So those poor little munchkins, they never got to say goodbye to
No.
you and to their classmates in person that year. That's so heartbreaking. The other thing that strikes me when you're talking, Ms. Clarke, is those kids were children when they left, but by the time they came back to school, whatever, 13 months later, they had software, they had email addresses, they had become kind of broken in as digital citizens.
Yeah.
And now that's happened to childhood,
Yeah.
right? I mean, maybe that's a different episode that we should have, but that's pretty heartbreaking because
it
now
is.
what that's doing to kids to be digital citizens too soon. So now let's go back to what happened to you.
Yeah. So, we finished off that school year. The following school year was a weird school year. It was like a hybrid kind of situation. So most of the students, their parents opted to keep them home. There were a select few that came in. So, and also for teachers as well, like you could put in an accommodation if you had like a medical accommodation, or if you were pregnant, or whatever the case may be, to not teach in the school building. So you would be a remote teacher. I wanted to be in the building. I was adamant about wanting to be present for work. So that school year, that was very weird. I was there fully present. And during that school year, that's when the vaccine came out. So because I'm a special education teacher, it's two of us in the classroom. I teach an ICT class, so the gen ed teacher and myself.
What's ICT?
Integrated co-teaching.
Okay.
So that basically there's like, you can have no more than 12 students with special needs in your classroom, and then the rest of the population is supposed to be a general education.
Okay.
So my co-teacher, she was deathly afraid of COVID. Like she was we would laugh about it because she was a comedian, but she was really afraid of COVID. So like when the vaccine rolled out, she was like, oh, I'm going to get the shot. I'm getting it. And I'm like, okay, do whatever you want to do. Like, so most of my colleagues did receive the shot. There was like a handful of us who did not, but it wasn't a big deal. No one cared who got the shot, who didn't get the shot. I remember one of my colleagues asking like, oh, so what if they mandate the shot? What are you going to do? Like, you're going to take it, right? And then I was just like, why would they mandate the shot? I'm like, I don't understand why. And in my naivety is because teaching in DOE, you don't have to submit a medical. So they don't know if I ever got a tetanus shot, a measles shot, a polio shot. Like there's no medical history to teach in public school. Daycare, yes. DOE, no. So for me, I was just like, they're not going to mandate the shot. There's no reason to.
Right.
Clearly, I was wrong. And so that school year ended in June. And over the summer, there was a lot of dialogue, a lot of discussions about whether they were going to mandate the shot. During that weird school year as well, we had to get tested, for COVID to see if you were positive. And there was this whole protocol of locking the classroom down and opening it up. And I caught COVID during that school year as well. I got COVID in like February, and I was okay. And so the summer happened, and one of my friends who also did not want to get the shot, she was at a different school, but she's my friend. And she texted me like, hey, they mandated the shot. So my sister-in-law is also a teacher. So she texted me like, hey, did you see like they mandated the shot? So when I was like, let me get the article So when I read the article, it didn't really say it was mandated. It said get the shot or continue testing. So I was like, oh guys, don't worry. Like you don't have to get the shot.
Mhm.
And literally, I don't know the time frame. I can't remember if it was like 2 days later, a week later, but in a short time frame, it literally went from you can get tested to
Mhm.
you have to get the shot
Oh my goodness.
and or face termination. And that was still during the summer. And it still didn't really hit me that it was occurring because I personally thought the teachers would have fought more.
Right.
So because I remember that when they were discussing mandating the shot, and my timeline is all messed up, but I remember it was coming out under President Trump, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, like they're
Mhm.
going to mandate the shot. So it
Right.
was this whole uproar, like, oh, he can't do that. If he mandates the shot, we're going to fight, we're going to protest. So
Right.
I was like, I was prepared for that version of the story. But
Right.
then when it happened under Biden, it was like, mum, no one said
Right.
anything.
Wow.
It
That's
was
so
okay.
ironic.
Yeah.
And Ms. Clark, isn't Randy Weingarten head of the teachers union?
Yeah.
And she's like best friends with the Bidens and so corrupt. I mean,
So
I'm not
yeah.
putting words in your mouth. That's my opinion.
it's it's her and Mulgrew, Michael Mulgrew, and he sold us out um completely. Like
It's shocking. I mean, if there's a reason for a teachers union to exist, fighting to keep members' bodies from having things put in it they don't consent to is like reason number one, apart from sending you to into a mine that's collapsing, right? I mean, like, what
yeah.
else do you pay union dues for? So what was the discussion around the teachers unions at that time? Like, did teachers say, hey, where are the unions? Like, what do I pay my dues for? Why isn't the union representing me? Swollen limbs, joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, cognitive decline. These are just a few of the awful side effects that you can experience due to poor blood circulation. To make things worse, it's unlikely that your blood circulation will correct itself on its own. This means your health issues will not only continue to decline as you age, they could really become catastrophic. And taking ibuprofen isn't a solution to pain. It's only temporary relief, and it only masks the real problem, which is inflammation. So right now you can go to getkrill.com/dailyclout to learn more and get a special free shipping offer just for being a listener of our show. New research proves there's a potent deep sea supernutrient tucked away 73 miles off the Atlantic coast, which is the hidden key to improving your blood circulation in krill oil. Researchers are saying this Antarctic supernutrient is the key to your diet. And this is indeed omega-3 fatty acid, but not just any form of omegas. These particular omega-3 fatty acids are sourced from wild-caught krill, a kind of fish. This omega-3 content from krill oil has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as to reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. Benefits go on and on. In fact, some report it outperforms name brand pain relievers, and they see results in as little as 7 days. It doesn't have the dangerous side effects that ibuprofen does. And better yet, for a short time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic krill oil at up to 66% off plus free shipping. Just go to getkrill.com/dailyclout right now and take advantage of your special offer. You'll really feel better. Thank you so much.
So there weren't any real discussions. Like the unions just did whatever. The teachers who so majority of the teachers took the shot. I
Mhm.
think the ratio was like 60 to 70% had already taken the shot, which
Mhm.
was another reason why it was so easy to mandate it because so
Right,
many of us already took it.
right,
And
right.
so the ones of us who didn't take it, yes, there were discussions like, why are we paying our union dues? We had rallies in the city
Right.
saying no. But those discussions didn't go really far. And there was no discussion when it came to the mandate. Like like Mulgrew never came and said, hey, this is being discussed. It literally just came out like, oh, hey, you're mandated. There like it was like, when did you ask us like what our preference was? You never said like, do you want to take it? Do you want to just continue testing? There
Right.
was nothing wrong with continue to test. I don't understand what the big problem was, especially because after everyone got the shot, everybody still got COVID by December anyway. So it's like, if we're trying to stop the spread or whatever the case may be, all of that was null and void. And honestly, the state of emergency was already declared done when the mandate was rolled out. So none of it really made sense. And so those of us who didn't take the shot, we were like, start pulling your dues, leave the union. But it wasn't enough of us sticking together to make a big, have a big voice. And then we were trying to get the firefighters and the police officers to rally behind us, because it was like, hey, if they're doing this to us, they're going to do it to you. Totally. And their unions were just like, no, that's just for the teachers. That's just for the healthcare workers. You guys won't be touched. You're untouchable. It's fine. And then it came out for them too. So,
oh my gosh, Ms. Clarke, this is so mind-blowing. So a question that arises, and we've got Cafecito Break, our friends, we love them, saying, hola, New York City, take a listen to a candidate who will fight for our rights. And then my 3 favorite symbols, a rose symbol, a Rosie the Riveter symbol, and a Statue of Liberty symbol. It's like perfect. That's like, I want that t-shirt. But
I need to add it to my profile.
Right, it's good. So how could teachers be mandated, since HIPAA laws protect your medical privacy? As you point out, like, why couldn't teachers say legally, sure, I took it, and no one would know? Like, did you have to provide like a doctor's letter or something?
So we had to upload our proof of vaccination into a system. We had to upload it into SOLAS. And basically, like, when it was kind of slow because it was a slow rollout, but pretty much like when you put it in, it's supposed to be like, when you get the shot, it's like directly linked so they can actually see if you really got it. So there were some teachers who uploaded a fake card. And so it took months to finally trace it and realize, like, hey, that's not real. But the funniest part about it is those teachers are still employed.
Ugh, it's so gross.
It is. And that's what we were arguing too. We're like, what happened to HIPAA? But it was just
what happened to HIPAA? But what do the lawyers who are working with you hopefully say about HIPAA? Surely that's a legal argument. Like, no, you can't.
What I've learned on this journey is that these courts, these judges are corrupt. Like, so. You expect them to do the right thing, but I forgot how many different cases. Like, there were so many like little technicalities, like, oh, some of us, we passed our, I forgot the exact term, but like our jurisdiction to file, like we were out of,
right.
When we could file, like we lost that part. Other things, like, let's look, oh, did you appeal? Did you do this?
They nitpicked it to death. The way
they nitpicked so much. And, my case, it was about 5 of us, 5 teachers. We were solely arguing tenure law. That's it. And I remember when I got tenured, the saying was, now you can do whatever you want and not get fired, right?
So that's the idea of tenure, right?
Right. So that's
molesting someone, right?
Even that, they just have your case and they'll move you somewhere else. So even teachers who do that are still employed. So it's like, you can do whatever you want and not get fired.
Right.
Well, I got fired and I never got due process. The U of T never helped me.
Did you get a letter, Ms. Clarke? Like, how were you fired?
Through email. So they put us on leave without pay, right? I filed a religious exemption. They denied that.
On what basis?
There was no basis. It was just
you said no.
What did they say? The term was an undue hardship. Like, they couldn't accommodate us if we were to remain on staff, which makes no sense because we just were virtual the year before. But it was a blanket deny. And it literally just came out earlier this year that it was just a blanket no for teachers. So I personally did not even appeal because we already knew that they were going to deny it. So I'm like, why am I appealing? Like, this is a joke.
Yeah.
And so they put us on leave without pay. Everyone's leave without pay was kind of different. I think
without pay.
I was placed on leave October 4th, 2021. Yes, 2021, placed on leave without pay, which again is egregious because going back to teachers who might molest a child, they get what you call rubber rooms where they can't be with the kids, but they're still getting paid.
Yeah, I've heard of
We
that.
didn't even no rubber room, no like we got stripped of every single
I've
thing.
never even heard of that.
Yeah,
I mean, tenure is tenure, right?
tenure
They
is
can't
tenure.
fire you. And I've never heard of a New York City or any public school teacher being late, set aside, right? Without pay. I mean, the
Yeah,
whole reason you become a public servant is that can't happen. That's not the
exactly.
whole reason, but
Supposedly. But I mean that is right. I teach because I love to teach, but that is another reason why you become a city worker. Like after being rich, the next best thing is being a city worker, like to have to accomplish the American dream.
right.
Well, yeah, they put everyone's timeline was different. So all of us didn't really get fired at the same time. And I
Mhm.
think it's because if you had like court cases going on, they weren't terminating you right away because they had to hear like the results of your case.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
was on leave for about a year. So I went on October 2021 and then by August 2022, I think it was like August 9th, either the 9th or the 19th, I got my termination email basically saying like either upload my vaccination, still my vaccine status, upload my vaccine status, or I'll be terminated. And then I got the termination letter.
So basically, they just went around HIPAA unlawfully and, barreled through and trusted that no one would be able to stop them from just
Yeah,
going around HIPAA. That is the most shocking thing I've ever heard, because you are right. If they can do it to the teachers, they can do it not just to the firefighters and first responders, but literally to everyone. Like,
I
this
mean
is an
that is
accident.
ultimately what happened because at a certain point they kind of left it up to like private sectors what they
Right,
want to do. But
right.
because everyone was kind of doing it, they were just like, okay, well, we're going to jump on the bandwagon too
God.
and do it as well. And
Mhm.
it affected everything. Like you couldn't go to a restaurant, you couldn't go to the movies, you couldn't do anything in New York, which is ironic because I could go to Long Island and I went to the movies, I went to restaurants just fine out in Long Island or out in New Jersey. And that's ultimately what happened with everything. And
Mhm.
it was hard. It was
Oh,
hard because the mandate affected everything, right? Because I was also an ABA teacher, so applied behavioral analysis for toddlers with autism. So they didn't have a mandate. So they called me and they were like, "Hey, did the mandate affect you?" And I was like, "Yeah." So they're like, "Okay, well, come work for us." But then the Department of Health took on the mandate. And so then I couldn't do ABA either. But
oh.
they went virtual. So the difference between them and the DOE is at
Wait,
least
disabled kids were left to learn virtually,
yes,
developmentally disabled kids? Is that not like child abuse and neglect?
you would think so. Ultimately, yes. And it was hard. It was hard for parents as well because parents had to become teachers. And
Right.
that's not
They're
really
not.
what they signed up for, right? They need the help. And that's why they're getting the help that they need.
Oh my
And
God.
so they had to do it. And teaching was difficult because you're teaching through a screen and you had to tell the parent like how to do what and what to do.
Right, and these are kids with focus problems,
Yes.
presumably. So how is staring at a little screen gonna be any kind of way for them to learn?
Yeah. And parents would break down and the kids would break down and it was hard. Like there
So
was some progress made, but it's not the same as be physically you have to physically be there, right? Like even as adults, some people struggle with going through college online.
yeah,
So
yeah.
imagine like little kids, like 2, 3 year olds,
Oh,
4 year olds doing
tiny.
this. Yeah.
Oh, tiny children were learning on screens?
Yeah.
Holy cow, I didn't even know that. So some kids are, with developmental issues are very hard to you have there's a reason you have this sophisticated training. Um,
Mhm.
they're hard to manage. Do you think, or did you witness or perceive or hear of, like, things getting really difficult in the kids' homes as a result? The parents are like trapped with the kids all day without any help, not able to get out, isolated themselves. Was that a factor, or was it mostly kids were just social, not just kids who need socialization were not socializing, kids who need Ms. Clarke to help them read were not reading, and so on?
It was everything. It was everything. It was everything. That it
Talk
was the
about what you saw
screen.
and heard,
It
please.
it wasn't besides the socialization, which they definitely needed, like they couldn't go at one point, you couldn't even go to the park, right? Like
Right.
I remember my husband reminded me how they took like the nets or whatever off of the basketball hoops and stuff like that so that people wouldn't go to the park. And I remember that during COVID there was an uptick in suicides because people were so removed, and the kids got depressed, and these are little kids, so they can't put language to what they're feeling. The parents were frustrated. Of course, there was an uptick in abuse, not for my kids like personally, but there was an uptick in abuse because you're literally trapped at home all day.
Oh my God.
And not to say that this is okay, but school isn't out for some parents. It is. Some kids are really difficult.
We evolved that way. We didn't evolve to be 24/7 with our
Exactly.
babies and children. That's what socialization is.
Exactly. So even that, the language, kids, because also like that depending on where they were with teaching with the masks on, kids weren't able to identify emotions.
I wanted you to talk about that. What was it like teaching with a mask on?
Horrendous. You had to do a thing called a mask break. Like if the kids wanted to like take a breather, they would have to say, "I need a mask break," and they will go outside in the
Oh
hallway and
my
pull their mask
God.
down.
Psychotic.
Um, I had to teach phonics.
You can't teach phonics wearing a mask?
No, and so I used to pull my mask down so that they
Jeez.
can see my face, and I didn't care. I would just pull it down, and I would say, like, the letter F, right? You have to see what that
Yes.
looks like. The L, like you have to. So I would pull my mask down and show them like M, N. Like I would pull my mask down to teach phonics at least. Math, not so much, but phonics definitely. I always pulled my mask
How
down.
could anyone think you can teach phonics to children without showing the mouth being phonetic, right? Like
Like
it's madness.
and they couldn't even see like your eyes, because the mask, like it's very. I had friends that I could walk by on the street and they wouldn't know it's me, and I've known them for years. And they would say like, I'm like, hey, and they're like, you're, I'm like, and they're like, oh hi, I didn't even know it was you. So imagine kids,
Oh my God.
imagine little kids who can't see a smile on their friend's face. Like it was really difficult. And our kids, our COVID kids, like who had to go through during that time, they suffered the most, the
Oh my
most, the most, the most.
God.
They are still behind now.
Wait, that was my question. Do you
Yeah.
see the impacts to this day? Because I've
Yeah,
got to believe this is like,
definitely. They missed out on a lot. And the DOE also really dropped the ball in terms of teaching these kids. They got away with a lot because it was like, well, you don't know if they have Wi-Fi at home. You don't know their situation. So you couldn't even hold them to the same standard that you would have if you were teaching in person. So
right.
I had like a student who was already behind from the entire school year. So remember, school shut down in March. So there's
Right.
only about 3 months left in the school year. And so I had discussed with his mom possibly holding him over because he just needed that extra support.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, well, you can't hold him over anymore because we had a pandemic, and he could have made amazing progress in those 3 months. Yeah, that's what teaching has become.
Do kids who were in, at vulnerable age, I mean, all ages are vulnerable, but do you see like suppression of their like social
Yes.
skills and affect?
They
Can you
don't know
talk?
how. They can't, they don't have like regular conversations. They don't know how to engage in conversations. They don't really read emotions properly. Their speech is also delayed because they didn't have that engagement with anyone outside of, the people in their homes. And then again, you don't know like what parents did at home with their child. So you don't know if they just put them in front of a TV screen for the entire time. Again, if a parent didn't have they didn't live in like a house to have like a backyard or something, your child is inside. They're not outside. And these are already kids who already love to be in front of technology and play Minecraft all day long.
Right.
So now when they're just isolated, as a parent, you already feel like, oh, you're missing out on so much. Okay, yeah, you can go and do that. You're not going to try to force them to go outside when they're already so sad about whatever is going on.
Oh God. Can you just give examples before we move on to your campaign of what it looks like for a kid to these impacts? What does it look like when you say that they have problems with speech or they have problems with socialization or their conversations don't go? If you're like me and you're getting to that age at which your body sometimes just hurts all the time, please listen. Don't reach for another painkiller until you learn about this turmeric hack for pain and inflammation. You've probably already heard that turmeric is being used to fight inflammation and joint pain, but not all turmeric is created equal. Regular turmeric powder in your pantry will help you a little, but a leading pain doctor from Connecticut discovered a special turmeric extract that is 200 times more powerful than what you find in standard turmeric. And when he shared this turmeric secret with his patients, the results were extraordinary. This turmeric extract attacks pain at the source, turning it off like a light switch so that pain not only often goes away, but stays away. Dr. Josh, the brains behind it all, has spent 20 years helping hundreds of thousands of Americans finally break free from constant aches and stiffness. And his turmeric hack has been the backbone of their success. So don't engage, if you can avoid it, with expensive surgeries, pain injections, or inefficient over-the-counter medications with side effects. Greet pain-free living. It's incredible stuff. I started taking it regularly, and I really did notice a difference. Again, you can't just take any old turmeric. If you want to learn more about Dr. Josh's turmeric secret and the exact method for how to use it in your routine, go to goldenrevive.com/Daily Cloud. The link is right below this video in the description. Click on it and start your journey toward a pain-free, healthier life. Normally, what can you just give really concrete examples, please, so we can
So, for example, like how you and I are having a back and forth. So I could look you in your eye, well, your eye, but I could look you, in your face and speak with you and wait for you to start and for me to engage. They can't do that. They can't look at you. They're looking away. They're
you
looking
don't
down.
make eye
They
contact?
don't make eye contact at all. They can't string a full sentence. So they're not engaged. It's like they're speaking to you, but they're not actually engaging in the conversation. So if I'm saying, "Hey, look at this phone," and they're like, "Oh, look at that book." You know what I mean? They're not
Wow.
able to answer questions.
Right.
So you're having discourse, you're asking them, "Oh, how do you know that the ball is green?" Or you know what I mean? And they can't say like, "Oh, I know it because." They're not able to express that and concretely describe what is going on as well. And also it's like instant gratification that they're also used to. So it's just like tugging at you, pointing. They're not really using their words. Like, we love to say, "Oh, use your words, use your
Right.
words." They're not really doing that. It's just like bringing you to like the items that they may want,
Oh my
not
God.
full conversations. They're behind in terms of reading. It's really sad what's happened to them. And even when it comes to like older kids, right? Because they were able to use the computer to do their work, they
Mhm.
can't write. They can't write essays. They don't know how to, and they already, students already had difficulties with ELA pre-pandemic.
Which we used to call English, right?
Exactly. Yes.
That's unexplained language.
Yes. So they already had difficulties with that before, right? Inferencing was always something that was very difficult for students. So
Inferencing, like drawing conclusions?
yes. And
Okay.
being able to read in between the lines, it was very difficult for students to do that pre-pandemic.
Wow.
So post-pandemic, when they don't really have those readers, they don't have anyone sitting down with them, asking them, what
Ah,
does this mean? How
right.
so they didn't have those probing questions.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's reflective today. Like even my daughter's pediatrician talks about it all the time. He was like, these kids today, they get anxiety they get very anxious when it's time to like just have discourse, because also with technology they're used to like texting. So it's like
Mhm.
it's like kind of like a texting effect. By
Mhm.
missing school is like that's kind of what happened to our babies.
Right. Right. Oh my God. What's gonna happen to them, Miss Clarke? I mean, what kind of jobs can they get? What kind of society can they build?
Everything is becoming AI now. So
Right.
I don't even know. Like in retrospect, when you think about it, right? Because you always think about the next generation being the generation that's going to take care of us. And I'm frightened. I don't really know
Right.
what that's going to look like
Right.
when, I'm older, how that's going to translate. I don't know how it can be undone. Like now, I know now, like a lot of actually a lot of pediatricians are trying to pick up and get parents the help for their child, and because the different questionnaires and different concerns. But even post pandemic, like everything is so intertwined.
Mhm.
A lot of the services. So now I'm a see it. So I go into the daycares or schools with either 3 and 4-year-old pre-K students, and
Okay.
I help them.
Okay.
And there's a shortage in see it teachers. So
You're saying
even
CR? What
see
are
it,
you saying?
there's a shortage with see it. Am I breaking up?
I'm not understanding the word CS.
Oh, see it. Special education itinerant
Thank
teacher.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. So there's a shortage. So like the student I see now, she couldn't get a teacher for a long time. So there's a shortage with speech teachers,
Mm.
with special education teachers, with physical therapy, like these
I bet
services.
a lot of people quit because of the mandates,
Yes,
right? As with
a
healthcare.
lot of people quit or moved away,
Sure.
and it's you don't really want to be in a profession where you don't feel like your job matters, where you're respected, because like you said, being a teacher isn't an easy job. It's a very selfless job. And so and everyone knows teachers don't get paid. We
Yeah.
don't make a lot of money. So
Right.
you're literally doing it because for your love of the profession.
Yes.
And when something like that happens, it's very traumatic, and it puts you in a negative space where you don't feel like you want to do it anymore. So you rather,
Understandable.
you rather find
Why?
something.
Why? Like, I mean, I think that all the time about also the first responders. The police and the firefighters. Your husband. Why? Why should I expect someone to run into a burning building to save my kids if I'm going to let this, city administration kick them in the teeth and put them in a poverty situation or whatever, no income
Exactly.
situation, and not let them feed their kids and welch on a contract, which is what tenure is, these employment contracts, and HIPAA is a contract anyway. Let's go back to, I agree with you completely, and I'm sure the audience does. Sandy Hardy says this is not accidental. Um, let's go back to your colleagues. Everyone's been, or maybe at different times, sent home, no income. What did the teachers who refused the mandate, and also by now or pretty soon you're in this community or network of first responders who refused the mandate, the Teachers for Choice community, which I adore.
Mhm.
How did people survive economically? What did they do?
We hustled. I know myself personally, someone I was speaking with said, like, why don't you try just tutoring?
Mhm.
Not for a company, just on your own. And she had a son, and so she asked me to tutor her son. So I tutored her son, and then she spread the word. And so because of her, and I'm so grateful to her, I was able to tutor about 2 or 3 other students, and then my sister also connected me. So some of us tutored, some of us had to travel far. Like, so I tutored, and then in the summertime, I had to travel to Westchester to work because there was no mandate out there.
Mhm.
So I had to go all the way to Westchester to work. Some people were fortunate enough to get unemployment.
Mhm.
It wasn't much, but it still helped. So I did get unemployment eventually. At first, I did not, and I finally got it in like April. So I
Mhm.
had unemployment for a little bit. I tutored, I taught far away. And then by the following year, like when they finally fired me,
Mhm.
they kind of left it to people to decide whether or not they're going to ask you for the shot. So I did work in a daycare,
Mhm.
and they didn't ask for the shot. Someone else I knew went to charter school. Charter schools can choose. They
Wow.
chose whether or not they mandated the shot. So
Mhm.
some charters did, some charters didn't. So she resigned and went to charter schools. I know people who resigned and moved away,
Yeah.
and they went down south to look.
Right.
Some people went upstate
Right.
to
Our
look
loss is
for.
Florida's gain. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not. I
Yeah.
might still end up there. Well, I actually wanted to go to Texas, but so some people went down south and just had to do what we had to do, and some people just never was able to do anything else. Like the
Right.
good thing about being a teacher is that your job kind of you can do that anywhere. Like I can
Mhm.
teach here, I can teach somewhere else, but being a firefighter, being a cop, that's not the same. Being in sanitation, it doesn't really translate well into other states. It doesn't roll over the same way. So some of
Right.
those individuals never really recovered.
Unbelievable. Yeah, your husband was telling us about, I think, a firefighter who was sleeping in his car. Like,
Yeah, that was Michael Caine.
oh, right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Let's go on a happier note. You didn't go to Florida. You didn't abandon us. You stayed in Brooklyn, and your wonderful husband stayed with you. You've got a baby now, a toddler, and you are running for city council. So
Yeah.
you stayed to fight, and you're fighting even harder now. And you might get elected to Brooklyn City Council, and you'll be in a position to change all of this. So tell us about why you decided to run and what your platform is.
So I pretty much decided to run because of everything that happened with the mandates. Some people may say it's a selfish reason to run, and that's okay with me. They may say, like, "Oh, that's a you problem." And I'm like, it's not really a me problem. It's a civil rights issue.
Yeah. Yes. Thank
Um,
you. Thank
I'm
you.
like, let's clarify that first before you say it's very selfish of me, because if we're going to be technical, I'm okay somewhat. I haven't recouped all that I've lost, not
Mhm.
even a little bit, but
Mhm.
I'm okay, in
Right.
comparison to others. So
Right.
it's not really a selfish thing to do. Like you said, there are people who are homeless, like literally heroes, because even though I worked throughout the pandemic, I like in the heat of 2020, I was home
Yeah.
being virtual. The
Okay.
cops, the firefighters, sanitation,
They were.
healthcare, they were outside
Yeah.
working
Yes, they
in
were.
it.
Yes, they were.
And for the city to turn around on them and fire them is unacceptable.
I 1,000% agree. And in this community, I don't think it would occur to anyone to say this is a selfish thing for you to do. You're among friends. Uh, Roscoe says, he's a friend of ours, she should be US representative in any sane world. Well, that could be in the future. Let's start with city council and who knows what's
I'm
ahead.
okay with just local politics.
You never know. You never know. We need good presidential candidates too. And Kay says, does Athena, Ms. Clarke, have any suggestions on effectively submitting exemptions for vaccination to employers? So I'm guessing that Kay or his loved ones works in healthcare, because that's, as far as I know, the only people who are still demanding it. Do you have recommendations about that, Ms. Clarke?
I really don't, because as you can see, it didn't work.
Didn't work for
For
you,
me.
right?
It didn't work for me, and I think honestly that they're not trying to accept, because why are they even still asking for it? Honestly, like in like
Right.
it's been 5 years,
Right.
and
Which
so
is insane.
it's been 5 years. So I don't know anyone whose accommodation has gotten accepted. Even
No,
people who had medical accommodations had to fight for like 2 years
disgusting.
before even being placed back to work. So
Absolutely
I'm
disgusting.
sorry, Kay, I don't have any advice in terms of submitting paperwork to continue working.
I'm going to jump in and say you're better off contacting a lawyer, in my opinion. Well, now let's go to your platform. I see here, it's so great. Um, well, first, let me read your quote. It's so great. You called what happened to you, quote, a dangerous precedent of government overreach. And you said no one should be forced to choose between their conscience and their livelihood. The government trampled on people's rights. Those who are fired must be reinstated. And those who are coerced into taking the vaccine should be compensated for this violation of bodily autonomy and freedom. Cheers around the room. And so let's talk about your positions. We've got three here: fighting for due process, backing Resolution 5, and holding government accountable. So talk about your agenda.
So pretty much I would like to change the legislation behind what happened, so that in case of any other emergency, because a state of emergency doesn't mean that your rights get thrown out the window. It doesn't mean that you just get to decide like, oh, well, hey, it's an emergency, so we get to say this is what you have to do. Because then an emergency can happen tomorrow. And so it needs to be changed, right? The same way that they didn't change the law when this happened. They just went around it and did what they wanted to do when they could have changed the law. So since they didn't, I would like to change the law so that this never happens again to anyone else, because it's very unfortunate what happened, and you can't claim to care about the people that you're serving and then you put them out of work and you make them choose between their health, their spiritual beliefs, their God-given rights, or being able to work. And I don't think in any state anyone could afford not to work, but New York is one of the most expensive cities to live in. So to do this to pretty much people who were heroes is unconscionable, and it's ridiculous, and I don't even have words to describe what has happened to us and happened to other individuals, because there are even people who took it and they didn't want to, and they have to also live with that choice. And I can't imagine being on that end of the spectrum either, because to me, for me personally, that would be harder than, losing my job.
So you've got a good piece of legislation, or it's a resolution 5. And what would that do?
So resolution 5 is honestly, it already it was supposed to go to city council. They were supposed to vote on it last November, I believe. So the resolution states it was literally just to get the fired workers back. It wasn't even about compensating them, but like we discussed before, there are individuals who are still out of work, who are facing eviction, who are homeless. So it's just to pretty much get them back to work, get their livelihood back. And so that's what resolution 5 is. Not a reinstate, it's not a compensate, I should say. It's just more so reinstating them and getting them back to work. And unfortunately, that didn't pass in City Hall. Something happened down the pipeline and they never got to vote on it. I don't know, very suspicious, but we're going to have to like redo it pretty much and get it back on the floor. Okay. And hopefully that can get them back to work. But honestly, changing the legislation, or even, as city council, you have the right to like overturn a judge's ruling.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout. Have you ever wondered why your brain can feel foggy even when you're eating clean and exercising? It might not be burnout, it could be parasites. Groundbreaking research from Dr. Alan MacDonald reveals a direct link between chronic parasite infections and neurological diseases, such as multiple sclerosis. Parasites can cause inflammation, nerve damage, and long-term cognitive decline. More reason to do a full body cleanse at least once a year. The wellness company has a solution for you: ivermectin and mebendazole, the gold standard parasite solution, now combined in one cleanse combo, designed to eliminate harmful invaders and support your immune system naturally. Medical grade, not some trendy herbal gimmick. Fill out a quick intake form and you'll get a 3-month supply shipped straight to your door. MAHA is officially here, and the wellness company is making hard to get medications digitally accessible so you can live your best life. Head to dailyclout.health and use code dailyclout to save $60 off plus free shipping on all orders. Cleanse your body today. Get rid of parasites today. Thank you.
Saying like, hey, you guys didn't rule properly in this case, and have them open it back up to get people back to work.
Wow. So Cafecito Break points out small business owners, gig employees in the media, freelance, restaurant, and hospitality were also deeply affected.
Yes,
they were. So would Resolution 5 and your other piece of legislation, reinstate and compensate, positively affect those people who lost their jobs as well? It's not just teachers, right?
Yes, it's for everyone. It's not just a city worker thing. It's an everyone thing, that it just can't happen again. So resolution 5 would again, it's not a reinstate and compensate, because also when we think about the city workers, our contracts were different, right? It was supposed to be ironclad. We were supposed to get due process and no one did. So that's kind of how resolution 5 helps that. But in terms of changing legislation, that'll be for everyone. It should be a blanket thing across the board in all areas, because restaurants and other businesses did it because they said they had to. They were getting fined for allowing people to work, and they would come into their businesses and fine them thousands of dollars. Yeah, fine them thousands of dollars just for having someone sit in the restaurant who didn't show them a card. And again,
they were so scared. The business owners were so scared, and they didn't want to do it. Like so many of them.
Most people didn't want to do it. It just sounded insane. Like, how is it my business what you do with your body?
Totally. Well, I will never forget being in Grand Central, and I wouldn't wear a mask, and I wasn't vaccinated, and I didn't have my papers, and there was an area where you were supposed to sit if you were not vaccinated, and like they were separating people. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit there. And they had to escort me out of Grand Central. But I remember the cops were mostly men of color and women of color. And it was a white guy who was, kind of initiating the conversation. But he said, you've got to go, you've got to go. And I'm like, this is a violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
And like there was no one wanted to take me away. They had to do it because of policy, but I could feel that vibe of everyone understood what I was saying, and everyone understood. It's straight up discrimination. We got rid of that in New York City in 1964.
That's
right?
exactly what it was. I didn't even know like that was happening. I know they were removing people from restaurants, but I didn't know there was like separate seating.
I'm going to have to go back to my notes, but it was a vaccinate. You had to be vaccinated to go sit there. Right?
No way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, and it was more comfortable. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to go sit there. And they're like, no, you're not. So, yeah. Oh my God. I almost got kicked out of my hotel because I went in the lunchroom and they're like, are you vaccinated? I'm like, no, a lunch counter, Ms. Clarke. And they're like, well, that's against our policy. And I was tweeting, like I braced for them to come get me because, that didn't happen to you.
Wow.
Maybe worse.
But for me, honestly, I was just so pissed off about everything. I really was, that I didn't spend a single dollar in Brooklyn.
Right.
I went to Long Island.
Right.
I went to New Jersey, but there was a thing on Instagram about restaurants or places that would take you without vaccination. And I would spend my dollars in those places, but I absolutely refused to spend my money where it wasn't wanted.
Good for you. Cafecito Break says, yeah, there was separate seating, and they add, and there was no seating for the unvaxxed. And that's what I remember. Oh, it's deep. We're traumatized. I mean, Ms. Clarke, I think one reason you're such an exciting candidate is I think this whole city is traumatized, like layers of trauma. Layers. And we don't have these conversations.
This is the first time I'm ever hearing about the seating. I guess maybe because like I'm around other drivers as well. So, and no one was really trying to travel. I honestly, I had you would think there would have been a bigger uproar about the seating.
Thank you. We're supposed to not do this to people. I
am shocked. No, seriously.
Oh,
you just blew my mind.
Well, Clarke, I could go on and on. And again, it could be just like in New York and Brooklyn, people have their like patterns of life,
Yeah.
My places I went just happened to be much worse than the places you happen to go. But I will tell you, I literally had to eat on the sidewalk like an animal. Like I couldn't walk into a restaurant with my kids.
I know the restaurant. Yes. Yeah. I remember like
gyms. Oh my God.
You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't do anything without showing. And I remember like even my sister, because my sister's a gym rat, and she couldn't go to the gym. And that aided in, like back then, I don't think I realized that I was like depressed. Right. But like now that there's light, I'm like, I was really in a bad place. Like I was in a terrible place during that time. And there's no kind of remorse, no apology, no,
exactly. That's why you'd be such a healing candidate, because we have to talk about this, right?
We do. And I think people try to shun it. Like they try to act like it didn't happen. And I'm like, you shouldn't have to suppress that either. You shouldn't have to feel bad or guilty about a choice that you made. Like some people thought it was for the greater good, and they weren't thinking logically because they scared them half to death. Exactly. But be honest about those feelings instead of trying to act like it just didn't happen, because it did happen. We lived it together. We did. Now, thank you. You're bringing up a lot of feelings in me, even as we're talking. Let's go to another really interesting part of your agenda. You said due process for Americans ahead of due process for immigrants. So a lot of people on social media had questions about what you mean by that, and so do I. Oh, simply put, so there are some illegal immigrants who are possibly being deported or having whatever issues, and they get their hearings they're getting their court cases heard, and they're not citizens. I'm not saying that they're not as important. I would never say that. My parents, like I said, I'm a child of immigrant parents. I'm first generation American. So that's not my argument. My argument isn't that they should not get due process.
Right.
However, take care of home first. You can't take care of someone else that's not from here. And then the people who are here, who've slaved on their backs, right? Working hard, they don't get due process. That's that's in my contract. It's literally written in the contract. It's not like I'm pulling it out of thin air and saying that I want something that's not supposed to be warranted. It's supposed to be there. And none of the civil servants, none of us, not a teacher, not a cop, none of us got due process, but they terminated us, eliminated our contracts, nothing. But there are people screaming at City Hall for due process for illegal immigrants, and that's not right.
I get it. And so it must be painful for you to see people like, is it Commissioner Lander getting tackled by ICE for protecting the due process of people who are here illegally, and Americans, as you say, who work so hard, many of them heroes, didn't get due process at all. Is that part of your platform?
That's exactly what that is. Very harmful, and it's hypocritical. Like, how dare you be upset over them not receiving due process when the people, first of all, the tax dollars that you're using to defend them, we work those tax dollars, and you didn't defend us. You didn't like. I'm not saying like whatever, wherever you stand, right? But give us, like, you could have given us our due process and still fired us.
So you're saying America first, Americans first. Okay. Well, so let's go to a transportation issue. You said it's dear to your heart. You said, don't turn Brooklyn into a mini Manhattan. We don't need all these bus lanes and bike lanes. We need places to park. Now, environmentalists might be screaming about that. What do you mean, Ms. Clarke? Like, say more about how that would help Brooklyn.
Well, first of all, a lot of Brooklynites drive. They try to make it seem like, oh no, most people take public transportation. That is not true. And driving isn't just for the elite, actually. Like, I don't even remember the statistics, but East New York has the most drivers.
And East New York, for people who don't know, is one of the lowest income areas in Brooklyn.
Yes. So East New York has the most drivers, right? Where I'm from, Mill Basin, we call it a 2-fare zone. So there's no subway where we are. So most of us have to drive. So Mill Basin, Marine Park, Garrettson Beach, there are no trains. So most people drive. I didn't start driving until my late 20s, but most of us drive. So somewhere like Garrettson Beach, for example, right? They have a bus lane. Most people, it's a very small town. It's like a boating community. So it's literally one street in, one road out. So during Sandy, they had severe flooding, right? And they lost a lot of their infrastructure. So they had asked for, I forgot what it's called, but they asked for some kind of buffering for the port, you know, and instead they got a bus lane. They got a bus lane, or is it they got a bike lane?
Oh my God.
So the bike lane has the floating parking, and then you have the bike lane on that one road that it takes to go in. And the residents
dangerous. I mean, isn't that dangerous?
The residents there are terrified.
Wow.
They are terrified that if another superstorm or an actual hurricane happens, right? Because what we learned from Superstorm Sandy is that we're not exempt, right? At one point in time, we were like, New York, yeah, we don't get hurricanes, we don't get this, but that's not true anymore. Like, this weather is, anything is possible. So they are terrified that if emergency happens, that they're not able to get out. And like, my husband, he's a firefighter, and he says, like, those floating parking spaces, when the fire trucks come, they can't get in. They can't get in. They can't, because you see how big the big iron truck and a car, like they can't get in. So things like that, the bus lanes, the bike lanes, the islands in the street, this is a city. This is not the suburbs.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's hazardous. It's not just we want parking, which we do, but
Right.
it's a safety
It's a
hazard.
safety hazard. And Cappuccino Break adds, some of the bike lanes don't make sense and are dangerous. ER nurses told me most bad accidents were not from cars, they're from bikes and e-bikes. And as
Yeah,
a
they kind of
fan,
sneak up on you too when you're driving.
totally, as a fan of, alternative transportation, in Europe, they have like completely separate bike roads for bikes. They don't mingle them in with cars, which is a complete disaster. So yeah, I think a lot of Brooklynites will hear you. Last question.
Mhm.
You are running as a Republican, and
I am.
a lot of people, have, I would say, stereotypes about both parties.
Uh-huh.
Why did you decide to run as a Republican? And do you, I mean, it's kind of a larger set of questions, but do you see a new generation coming to the Republican Party? Is Trump a factor? Is COVID a factor? Like, do you see any shifts in the demographics for who's a Democrat, who's a Republican, who's an independent?
So I do see a shift. So let's rewind. So I'm running Republican. I literally just became Republican this year, and I changed because the Democratic Party left me ultimately. It wasn't so much like, oh, I'm not a Democrat, but with everything that happened, it was very hard to stay loyal to them.
Hmm.
Right. And to me, they didn't align with what I believe in. Right. So again, Jamaican. So, most West Indian, most Caribbean cultures, we're very, I don't know if the word is conservative, if that's the right word but, most of us are like, we grew up with religion and, so
Family.
family. Yes. So to me, the Democratic Party doesn't align with that. Like they don't believe in the nuclear family. They don't believe in religion. They trampled all over people's religious beliefs, your
Right.
bodily autonomy.
Interesting.
So there was just no way that I can honestly stay in that party conscionably.
Mhm.
So it just didn't align with what I believed in. So that's why I was just like, I have nothing to lose being Republican at this point.
Right.
I do think Trump has something to play with it. I think that, in spite of whatever's going on, he came off as being real.
Mhm.
And people like that. People like transparency. And I'd rather you just tell me what you're about. I feel like with the Republican Party, you kind of feel more like even
Mhm.
if you don't agree with everything, they're somewhat more real about what it is. You kind of know where you stand. I think the
Interesting.
Democratic Party will lie to you and say, oh, hey, we'll do this or hey, we do that. And then turn around and they go back on their word within 2 seconds flat, and they honestly, to me, they don't care about Americans. That's just the easiest way for me to put it. They don't care about the American citizen. They don't care about um, the American dream. They don't care to help us prosper. And
Mhm.
so that's why I, became Republican. And I do think there's a shift. I'm not sure if it's a complete shift in becoming Republican, but even if people aren't becoming Republican, they'll be more independent.
Right.
And I think people need to pay attention more. And I think that's kind of what's happening. It's kind of like an awakening. And people are starting to look like something about this doesn't feel right. You
Mhm.
know, culturally speaking, Black people, we feel we're not supposed to be Republican. And my challenge to that is you don't have to give your loyalty to any party, to be
Right.
honest, right? Pay attention to the people who are running and what they stand for, what they believe in. Like we need that kind of transparency from both ends, right? Because neither one is perfect,
Right.
but you have to align with what aligns with you. And most of the people I know, they don't align with the Democratic Party either, but they're not willing to actually admit it yet. And so, um, I was like, I'll just do it. After going through COVID, there isn't much you can do to bring me down at this point. I feel like everything that I like worked for, I already lost. So
Mhm.
I have nothing more to lose and everything to gain.
Beautiful. And so, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Ms. Clarke, that was such an inspiring and informative and moving interview. We have almost 2,000 people watching
Oh, hi.
live just on one platform, and many, many more thousands before this video is done being a video. So people, I'm sure many people want to support you. And I just want to say, you don't have to live in Brooklyn to support Ms. Clarke, right? If this is the kind of thing you want to see, the kind of candidate you want to support and encourage, the kind of policies, because she can help pass them here in Brooklyn. They can be models for the rest of the country. You can, I think, legally support her to a certain extent, right, Athena? Ms. Clarke. So how do people help you and how do they donate specifically?
You can go to contribute.org, contributenyc.org, and you have to scroll down to find my name, Athena Clarke, or you can go to my Instagram, or my Instagram is simply my Facebook is simply Athena Clarke. My Instagram is Clarke, CLARKE, the number 4 council, and the link to my contribution is right there. I am not sponsored by anyone. I don't have a big Uber pack supporting me. It's literally just your dollars that's helping this work get funded. So any donation is truly, truly appreciated.
It's true. And how do people find out like where you're speaking, find your appearances? Are they all on that website?
So everything is, I post everything either on Instagram, Facebook, and then my website is www.2025clarkcitycouncil.com. And if you do find my Instagram, my website link is there as well. I always post where I'm going to be, what I'm doing, and you'll be able to see me there.
Wonderful. And we'll keep following Ms. Clarke on Daily Clout, and we'll ask your campaign to send us every link so that people can follow you there too. I feel hopeful. I'm going to let you go. I thank you for I hope you get to save Brooklyn.
Thank you.
We'll keep watching you. We're so inspired. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.